Okay, so I could take a break and smoke a cigar and stuff, but no, I'm gonna go straight into this one. I don't smoke the whole thing. I just puff a little bit, just so you know. I'm not gonna abuse that, although I'd like to. All right. What is the job of government? Okay. Well, I'm not going to define what government is, but if we do have a government, the job of government is to protect individual rights. That's it. Anything else, it's an abuse of power. Pure and simple, right? Pure and simple answer with a very complicated discussion. How do you protect individual rights, and why is that important? And why the individual and not the group? Isn't the group superior to the individual? Isn't knowledge contained within a group and not within an individual? Yes, it's very important. The groups are very important. But to preserve the group, you must preserve the individual, because if you preserve the group, a lot of individuals fall through the cracks and are either expelled or exterminated, or just neglected. A lot of them will be neglected. Because the group, you get people together in a group, their mindset changes. What is good for us? What is good for us? Who is us? The ones that are the smartest? The ones that are the tallest? Everybody? Can't satisfy everybody in the group. So who does government protect in the group? Well, the people that are a little bit not all there health-wise, mentally, are going to say, well, it pertains to those who are most beneficial to the group, not the ones that are not beneficial to the group, not the ones we don't like. That's the natural tendency. That's where the danger lies. The job of government is not to protect the group, because of those particular issues, and they lead to a lot of abuse in the name of the group. So the job of government, trying to be rational about this, is to protect the individuals, to protect the rights of the individuals specifically. So yeah, you're protecting the individuals, but you're looking primarily and probably specifically at their rights. Some individuals are evil, but their rights can be protected in good conscience. In good conscience, you can protect the rights of even evil people, and it's rational. All right, but you're not protecting them necessarily or their evil ways. You're protecting their rights. That's the job of government. The job of government is not to impose what it thinks you need. Once we're clear on the rights, the job of government is to protect those, which means we need to define the rights, which we have been trying to do in this country, in the United States, for a long time. We've lost our way, unfortunately. And we've lost our way because we're thinking that there's no distinction between rights and entitlements. Rights seem to be entitlements. I'm entitled to this and that, and you must do something in order for me to have that right or that entitlement. It's the same thing according to some people. The blurring of the line between rights and entitlements is a dangerous thing these days. Entitlement is a narcissistic thing. Pathological narcissists feel very entitled. feel that you need to serve their needs. It is not a mentally healthy condition. So if we go down that road where rights become someone else's obligations, and government gets in on that, we're in trouble. You can see the previous video for the obligations thing. Okay? But the job of government is to protect individual rights, the rights of the individual, not the evil ways of individuals, but the rights of those individuals. Okay? One of the big rights is the right to bear arms. I didn't write this down, but I'm just going to mention this briefly. What does it mean to have the right to bear arms and the right to be well regulated? The right to bear arms pertains to defense. I have the right to possess any weapon that you are going to aggressively and maliciously use against me. I have the right to use the same weapon against you. If you're going to use a weapon against me, I have the right to bear that same weapon, or the arms. If you have arms to be used against me, I have the right to use those against you. It's a right of self-defense, in kind. All right? You can say, oh, you can bear arms, here's a knife, but I'm going to have this flamethrower. Okay? You have the right to defend yourself. No, I have to have the flamethrower or better. In order for me to have the right to bear arms, I need the same arms that you've got. That's where the right comes from. That's what it's built on. That's the foundation of it. It's a tool against a violation of my boundaries, a violation of my life. I have to defend myself in kind. If I want to be mounting an effective defense, which I mentioned earlier, I have to have the same weapons that you do. If you are using weapons against me that are greater than I can use against you, that's the basis of tyranny and abuse. All right? There are some I've heard recently, they say that the citizens cannot outgun the police or the authorities. The authorities cannot be outgunned or outmanned. Okay. I think the phrase was, the police cannot be outgunned. All right. It's a reasonable position, but it's not something to be used as an excuse to disarm those who are trying to defend themselves in case they are illegally attacked. Okay? All right. So the job of government is to protect rights. One of those rights is to protect the right for me to use the same weapon against me as you use the same weapon against you as you're using it against me. The government is supposed to protect that right, which means it must allow me to purchase or to obtain or to construct that which you can use against me. Okay? And to be well regulated means I need to be able to train with those weapons. To be not interfered with, to train individually and with groups with those weapons that can be used against me. That's what well regulated means. Well trained. Effectively trained in the use of weapons that can be used against me. Well trained in tactics and maneuvers and strategies that can be used against me in a larger context. All right? All this was hammered out in the American Revolution, so we know what this means. People that don't know what that means are just either really ignorant or intentionally ignorant or intellectually dishonest. They know what that means, but they're intentionally dishonest. Some of them. Usually the smarter ones. They understand everything. They just choose to take a position that leads to control. All right, and they, in the name of safety, order, and security, they use the word order to restore order. It's dangerous. Having order is a good thing, but to pronounce that you do not have rights in this particular area because we are threatening the order of things, that's dangerous. Dangerous rhetoric, and you need to recognize that through rational thinking. Okay? All right. Totally off subject now. We're going to go into what is free will? If it exists, does free will exist? I'm laughing a little bit in my brain because I heard one thing that was just ridiculous from a very smart man, probably a genius. He says free will doesn't exist because use your free will to prevent yourself from falling off a cliff as you're falling. Use your free will to stop that. I laugh because it's such a fundamentally ridiculous position that it's like being a parent and you listen to your child and they come up with something totally totally wrong. You just get flabbergasted. All you can do is kind of it's just totally ridiculous. Okay, this is the thing. The will is in your thoughts, okay? It's not part of the physical world. Your will is in your thoughts. The thoughts are in your brain, and they're a projection that your brain sees, and you're understanding, and you're examining, and you can manipulate your thoughts, and your will is within those thoughts. It's not out here in the physical world. It's all going on in here. Your free will goes on in here. Now, as you're formulating thoughts, they can be used to direct physical activities. That's the beauty of life. It allows the communication between thought and decision to physical activity. It's an amazing thing. Life is required for that, and consciousness as well, with complex beings. Now, consciousness doesn't require that. It's not required for the movement of simpler life forms or the reproduction of simpler life forms and that sort of thing. But complex beings like us, our will is in the brain. It has nothing to do with physical falling. It has to do with what we are able to think, what we have decided to think about. And if you are free to think about things without anything interfering, you have free will. It's in the brain. It's free. It's not interfered with. Now, there are constraints. Let's say there are 10 things that you need to know to do this certain activity, but you only have 2 of those things in your brain that you know of. Do you still have free will if you don't have all those things under control? Yes, because you have at least 2 degrees of control in there. You understand 2 things, you can act on those 2. You don't need all of them. The same very smart person, who I will not mention, thinks that you need to control all the factors in order to have free will. You have to know and control everything, which again is so fundamentally outrageous. Okay, you can operate on 1 or 2 little bits of whatever, as long as you have a choice, or as long as you have a path forward. With at least, I guess, with at least 2 choices. You use your will to make the choice. You use your will to create how you're going to do it. You use your will for all sorts of things. And if it's not interfered with, it's free. That's what it means. Free will is will within your mind, within thoughts, that is not interfered with. Now, here we go. Is it possible to interfere with thoughts? Are there ways that we can see creeping up on us to interfere with our thoughts and control our thoughts? Again, that's a very simple yes. Now think about it. If we integrate with another, let's just say, if we integrate with something else that is able to control what we think, how long is it going to take before it starts to control everything that we think about? Not very long, if we allow that to happen. Now, the human brain is such an amazing machine, it may be able to adapt and resist the intrusion of something else making more thoughts. It may be able to resist, but I don't think so. We are clever enough and intelligent enough to create systems that, if integrated with us, will control us. Now, I'm not afraid of that sort of thing. If that's our direction, then what can we do? We can't do anything. But before that, we can use our brains and realize this is not a good thing. Okay? Keep it individualized. If we want intelligence outside of humanity integrated with us, keep them as individuals, just like we are individuals with other people. We don't want to mind meld together with other people. It's good enough that we can communicate. That's good enough. Same with artificial intelligence. It's good enough that we can keep it separate. If we start to integrate, we're going down the wrong path, and we are starting to go down that way. And some people will say, I don't want my own thoughts. Okay, you can't do anything about those people. There's no way to stop them, and we're not going to prevent them from doing that. They will suffer the consequences. We can see what they are. We don't all have to go down that way. That's my position on that. Okay? So free will may be one day removed. We can see some avenues that is approaching. Our will has been assaulted for many, many years before this with other things to control our thoughts. All right? This, by far, is going to be the most powerful tool to do that. This artificial intelligence, or what I call artificial usurpation or interference, artificial interference with us. Okay? It is a tool to usurp us. We don't have to let it happen, at least not with all of us. All right? Some people, it'll happen. That's my view on that. So free will may eventually go away, but right now we have it. As long as nothing is interfering with our thoughts to the extent where we have no options. If it gets constrained so much that we only have one direction, then we don't have free will. But if we have at least two choices, now that I think about it, we do have free will. We don't have to know all of the things, and we don't have to control everything or have an awareness of everything. We just need to have some movement in there somewhere, and then we can exercise our free will, which is tied to our identity as the thing that makes the choices. We are the thing that makes the choices. that's how you can pinpoint who you are. If you are no longer the thing that makes the choices, you are not a thing anymore. You can be aware, but you're something else. You're also something else. You're now, if you are aware of yourself and something else is making the decisions for you, you are now those two things put together. So the decision goes from you to the other thing, then that other thing is now you. That's just the way it may become. Okay, but for now, we are the decision maker. Okay. So yeah, there is free will, at least for now. I could go into what I think the thoughts are, but just in simple terms, thoughts are a projection of the mind. Okay? We see things in pictures many times. We understand things in the brain. As far as I can tell, I'm using my own brain, which is not that great. But as far as I can tell, what the brain does is it creates a projection, like on a movie screen, but it can also watch it at the same time. So it creates a projection and then watches it, then manipulates it, and it watches it, manipulates it more, and watches it. And it can communicate. These things can look at each other as well. You can flip it around. This projection can become the projector, and that can become the projection. You know, the brain is an amazing thing. All right, but for me, the thoughts are a projection, and we've known this for centuries and maybe thousands of years. And this projection, this thing that seems to be outside of us, has been misinterpreted or usurped by the ideas of spiritualism, dualism, the soul, and things like that. Okay, those ideas usurp our knowledge that our thoughts are outside of ourselves. They're projections. You know, it doesn't take very long for someone to think about this and say, yeah, I'm seeing pictures, I'm seeing ideas, I'm understanding in a way that I can examine. How do I examine something? It's got to be projected out so I can see it. That's how we think. That's what our thoughts are. And this idea that this is like a cloud or some sort of aura or whatever around us comes from that. All right, people come in and usurp these basic ideas, and it happens over and over again. And in these videos, I'll get into that. I'll get into how these ideas are usurped by all these crazy things. The basic ideas behind who we are as human beings, and those little hacks that affect us, that manipulate us, blossom out and become institutionalized, or become a skill in some people, or become something we can study and use as a weapon, yada yada yada. But I'm going to go over the basic concepts so we know who we are, so you will know how to examine yourself, how to examine who's teaching you, and how to use the laws of logic and reason and rationality. Okay, 24 minutes, maybe one more. Oh yeah, I mentioned in another video, how is evil and morality intertwined? All right. Oh, okay, so this was a tough one too. Morality is usually seen as the antidote to evil. Right? If you're a moral person, you know how to escape evil, or it's the antidote. Yeah. But it also a lot of times involves judgments and assessing value. And a lot of times it's just whims. If you just try to assess value on a whim, which a lot of people do, or on emotion, your morality is based on those whims and emotions. That's why I'm proposing rational moralism, because we can assign values to certain things, and we can know what's more valuable than something else, or put them in a sequence or an order or a group or whatever categories. We know and we can assess value. We know and we can assess how to counter evil by being a certain way. We know what is reason. We know what can be a should or an ought. We know it can be that and be beneficial. But unless we use a reasoned basis, we're all over the place. It can be influenced by emotions and other things. The reason why it's not good to base morality on anything else but reason is because reason is the most difficult thing to manipulate. If you are trained in how to think properly, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to manipulate you. Now, some people, that's not true. No matter how well trained they are in recognizing manipulation, they still submit to it. We have to accept that. There are exceptions. But for the most part, I think it's valuable to know that there are exceptions. Maybe we can help people like that to become more rational. But rationality, if you are truly rational, it's very hard to manipulate you, very hard to get you to do something evil, and very hard for you to accept doing evil things within yourself. You have a conflict within yourself. You'll say, that's just not rational. I don't want to live that way. Because I know that rationality is the best way. All right? So, morality and evil are intertwined because of the things I mentioned before. But another thing is, we are reacting. Many of us don't understand the ways of how to be abusive, so we're shocked by abuse, so we react, and we develop defenses, just like developing defenses against attacks from bacteria and viruses and stuff. Our brain reacts to attacks. We're shocked by some violations and abuses that we experience in life, and then we look to how do I defend myself? The best ways, as you get older, you'll realize, I hope, that the best ways are rational ways that make sense by following the rules of logic and how to obtain the truth. Those ways will help you resist evil. That's how they're intertwined. Another reason why they're intertwined. The evil will help us in certain ways. If it's a mild abuse, we will be able to defend against it. If it's an extreme abuse, it's very hard to defend against unless you've built up experiences from those mild abuses, strengthen yourself in your realization that you can think clearly to defend against the times when extreme evil will hit you. Okay, because it will. In certain times, some people are lucky it doesn't hit them very, very hard, but in some instances it does. And when the whole population is untrained, the whole population becomes infected and sickened. by these things that are evil. And a lot of them die, just like from a disease. Okay. So, yeah, how is evil and morality intertwined? Morality, in my view, is a defense against evil, and it needs to be developed early. That's the best way. But morality also needs to be rational. It can't be on a whim or emotion, because those things, if you're controlled by emotions, people can press your buttons, so to speak. They'll press your buttons. It's very difficult to manipulate you or press your buttons if you're thinking rationally. All right? I hope that's clear enough. I'll get into it later, as usual. Hopefully I'm loud enough. If not, I'll try to yell during the videos. This is the easiest setup for me, so I like this setup. But if I have to go to my car or go to somewhere more quiet, I'll do that. Okay, I think that's it for today. I'm feeling already a little bit worn out. My voice is starting to get worn out. All right, so we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.